We're going to run through all the reasons why you shouldn't tour Australia, and by the end of this video, if you still want to go, then you are really ready to go. So don't forget, I'm not an expert, willing to have a go at anything. After you watch this episode, please go to smarttouringsystems.com.au, because if you do take off on that big trip, a set of solar brackets will allow you to add and remove your previously permanently roof-mounted solar panel and turn it into your portable as well, negating the need to take both. While you're there, add a stubby holder and a hat to your order. Just a good quality, stylish hat to wear on your journeys. So let's get into it. So I really wanted to make this episode in a bit of a rebuttal, or in some instances an agreement with John Cadogan. I'm a big fan, John. I watch a heap of his stuff. He's a very smart man and a very funny sense of humour. Now he refers to us caravanners, or the caravan as such, as the aluminium shitwar, and how terrible a design they are, where you have your toilet, your kitchen and all your sleeping quarters all within arm's reach of each other, which when you think about it like that is quite funny. The other thing he really talks about is, you know, we spend $90,000 to tow our caravans to Dingo Piss Creek. So yeah, again, very funny sense of humour, dude, and go and check him out because he makes some good points. So as a caravan loving, touring, camping channel, I really want to talk about this, and not to just disagree with everything he's said. That's not what this is about. If anything, I tend to agree with a lot of his points. I think we need to take some of his light-hearted comments a little bit seriously. Now, I mean that in a regard that if you've never been into camping and touring as such, and have never done more than a little weekender, and then you go and dump 100,000 plus into a caravan and the same sort of money into a car, and then just piss off for the next 4, 5, 12 months and expect it to be all rosy, you're really going to be disappointed. What I really want to highlight here is all the negatives, and there is quite a few, and really, so by the time you get to the end of this episode, we'll go, well, hang on, maybe that isn't for me, or if you can deal with all that, maybe it is. So let's start with, I've just touched on it, the cost. The cost is pretty crazy. Like, if you were to go and spend $200,000 on accommodation travelling around Australia, someone smarter out there, can you please do the math? But I don't know if you'd ever spend it in a lifetime to stay in probably quite reasonable places and with nice facilities where you can't touch the toilet from the kitchen like you do in a caravan. One of John's latest videos does touch on that. So I'm not trying to copy your videos, John, but you make some good points. And we have a touring camping audience, so I really wanted you guys to hear this. So that is the first thing. So it is a massive cost. Camping and touring is not the cheap way to travel. That's for damn sure. I mean, you can. There are people that still do it, and you know, arguably what you see a lot of on the road these days isn't camping anymore. Like towing your house down the highway is probably, you can't call that camping anymore. Let's call that really traveling and touring. And traveling and touring is bloody expensive, like, and you need to be ready for that. It's not a cheap way to see Australia. So you can free camp, and you know, that's that beautiful word that everyone says, but there is so many places where that is just not physically possible. There's so many national park areas that although it is a free camping style, even some of the national parks can charge up to $40 a night for a bit of gravel. So you need to be aware of that before you go, righto, I've spent, let's say I've spent between $70,000 and $200,000 or more, because it can be, like you see some of the rigs on the road, and then think that's where the cost stops. It won't be very expensive to actually travel because I've got my house behind me. It's not like that at all. It's bloody expensive to travel. You have obviously fuel on top of it, food and alcohol and any things you do along the road. I mean, you could argue and say that you were going to do that at home anyway. So yeah, first thing is cost. Be aware that once you buy your house on wheels, that's not where it stops. If you really genuinely wanted to do it cheaply, as far as the initial outlay, buy a 30-year-old Troopy, put a rooftop tent on it, one little 40-litre angle, and off you go. But there's not a lot of rigs on the road like that unless they're genuinely just a young couple or backpackers. So we're really not talking about that style of travelling. That is genuinely still camping. What I'm talking about is touring and travel. And what you see on the road, travelling up and down the highway to do a 6 to 12 month lap. Right, so that's the cost. We're not going to go into like hardcore figures because it is going to be so different for everyone. What I can suggest is you actually sit down and work it out so you know what you're in for, and then add like 20% to whatever you think it is, because it just is always dearer. You like, don't sugarcoat it to yourself. You need to know what it's going to cost you so you don't run out of money on the road. So moving on, after the cost, can you live in a small box with your whole family? So look, this is a very personal one. Most people have day-to-day jobs. Most people's kids go to school. Like let's say that's 90% of the population like that. They do this for most of their lives or their whole lives. And then one day they decide, righto, let's go around Australia and all get together in a little aluminium box for 6 months straight. Now, this isn't a good idea for everyone. And you need to be realistic about that, because you could go from a really happy, tight-knit family, and then everyone could just be jammed in a box for 6 months and end up hating each other, and you will hate the trip for it. So, you need to be realistic that is 6 months too much for you and your family? Do you need to go, righto, let's do 2 or 3 weeks here and come back and reset, and 2 and 3 weeks there and come back and reset? There's no shame in that. But you really don't want to spend all that money and then realise that, holy shit, I can't put up with my family. I'm happy to say that is not me. I need to say that now because my wife does watch my videos. So I loved every minute of spending 4 months in that aluminium box with my whole family. And of course I'm going to say that because I'm on camera. But no, I really did. I don't have a problem with it. And I'm making this video so you guys are aware of the negatives. I'm not being negative. Right. So everyone's jammed in the box for 6 months. The next thing to think about is the actual logistics of it, right? So John does touch on this quite a lot. The fact that you can stand in the kitchen and nearly touch the toilet, or the chitoir, as he so nicely puts it. Look, there are some not so nice things about caravanning. I mean, I think it's, like we're being a bit picky. Like some of the caravans, or a lot of the caravans, you see going up and down the road, are like, high-end apartments once you walk inside them. So we really didn't have a drama with it, but it is something you need to be aware of. A kitchen in a like a 19-foot caravan like ours is not like a kitchen at home. It's cramped, it's tight, it's not really designed to be cooked in every day. We really used the kitchen in there, as far as cooking goes, as a backup plan when the weather was absolutely horrendous. We used our Weber for cooking everything from steaks, sausages, to roast, to pizzas. We've never been big fans of cooking cakes on the road. Like, don't worry, I'm a bit of a sweet tooth, but I'll just have a block of chocolate. But you could cook cakes in it too. So you really need to change the way you think about cooking and living in a caravan. Don't get in there and just fire up the grill every night. I mean, there are some people that will do this, but when you're that cramped and you've got 2 others, or up to 4 other kids, if you're mad enough to have 4 kids, it gets cramped in there. It can also get dangerous if you've got water boiling, there's people moving around, so you need to be aware of the limitations. Just because it says it's got all these appliances inside, it's got a kitchen inside, it's got a lounge inside, don't forget that there's up to 6 people in there sometimes, depending on how many kids you got. So is it going to be practical to actually use any of that? So you need to be aware that we still do call it camping, however I'm not in this episode, so you need to get your ass outside and cook outside most of the time for it to be comfortable. That is my belief. So they're the logistics of it. The other real logistic I'm going to talk about is, when you're at home, you turn the tap on and water comes out. You turn the light switch on, the power comes on. You go to the toilet, you hit flush, that's it. That's the last time you think about it. In a caravan, it's not like that. So if you've been away from civilization for, a few days, a week, 2 weeks, and you come into a town, it's not just a matter of going to the caravan park and parking up, or there's so many little chores to do. Empty the toilets, go and get fuel, fill the tanks up with water. Some of the caravan parks don't even have fresh drinking water that you can hook up to, especially in Western Australia. Go and do the groceries. All these things pretty well burn a whole day up. And when you're at home, someone can just go and get the groceries. But when you're coming into town and you're towing your van through town, we found that's the easiest time to go and get it. But that means the whole family's doing groceries. So you really do everything together when you're on the road, just about. So these are the logistical things that you need to really think about. So what I'm trying to get at, it's really not that sort of a holiday that maybe some people think it is. I would really rather refer to it as an adventure. And I mean, that's what we love doing. Again, I'm not trying to be negative. I'm trying to show you guys the negatives. So, righto. So they're the logistical things that you really need to be aware of before you set off. There's actually work to do on the road. Now, the other thing you really need to think about is maintenance. Maintenance is a big thing, especially like our setup's 7.2 tonne. You can't just drive 7.2 tonne around the country and, you know, just do its logbook servicing. You need to be on the ball with checking over your vehicle, wheel nuts, crawling underneath it. Like, are you up to that, you know, ability and have the want to actually do that? So if you just turn a blind eye to that, it will bite you eventually. Something will let you down in the worst possible of places. So my advice there is you really need to be hands-on and involved and know your vehicle quite well. And that is not for everyone. A lot of people aren't that way. And I'm not saying then don't go on a holiday. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying make an effort to at least know something about your vehicle. Like, know how to change a tyre. We actually helped a couple of young French backpackers, girls, change a tyre. And I mean, like, that's fine if you don't know how to do that when you're in civilization. These girls were kind of in the middle of nowhere, so they were relying on asking someone like myself to do it. They didn't have a backup plan. They had no idea how to do it. Now, that's fine. I'm happy to help. I was there, sweet. What if there was no one there to help them? They're stuck there. So what I'm saying is you really need to be hands-on and be aware that life on the road, when you're towing your house behind you, also goes with a lot of maintenance. So be involved and know your vehicle. Finally, I'm going to touch on the fact that, you know, when people do these touring style trips, a lot of them are extended. What do you do with your house? What do you do with your pets? Do you rent your house out? Do you sell your house? There's so many things to think about before you just take off. So one of the biggest parts of planning for us was our dog, our house. Obviously, we've got an online business, and a lot of people these days do have a passive income or an online business, and like that actually helped us travel. And that's something that you need to think about. How do you keep all those things running while you're away? If you just lock your house up and leave it and don't have anyone come and stay in it at all, it actually voids your insurance, which is something I learnt late on in the piece just before we left. So hot tip with that one, be aware that if you just lock your house up and leave, your insurance won't be valid. So if your house burns to the ground while you're away, you're pretty well screwed. So all those points I've just mentioned, and you're thinking about it with your head and saying, well, maybe I can't afford it, and maybe I don't want to live in a van with my whole family, and geez, it sounds like a lot of work when you do pull up, and I don't really know any mechanical stuff about my car, and geez, my house is going to be shambles when I get home. And all those things just weigh up to you not enjoying the trip, and you're using your head here, and you're thinking about it logically. Maybe traveling Australia with a caravan and a four-wheel drive isn't for you. After all those negatives, I could not think of anything better to do. We just love that style of travel. And John, I really think you should try it one day, mate. I'd really be curious to know if you have ever done any sort of camping and touring. Answer that for us. And if you haven't, go and try it, mate. So anyway, guys, that's really not me, again, being negative. It's just showing you guys the negative side of it. Now, after all that, if you're just like, yes, we're going anyway and we're going to have a hot time, that's friggin' awesome, and that's what I really want to hear, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to go again. I know our travel series not long ago come to an end, but as you've seen, we've got a fair few new exciting projects on the go, and I really enjoy interacting with you guys. So don't forget, you only live once. Get out there and enjoy it, even if there are a few negatives. Holy hell, electric Land Cruiser.